tests in the process of finding a job, to having to apply for a mortgage, where basically the bank looks at your credit score and your past spending behavior as well as your income and puts out a yes or no to one of the more complicated decisions of your life. And then while being employed, I have written various models. So I was really excited to read about Weapons of Math Destruction by Kathy O'Neill. But before we get in the book, let me introduce myself. My name is Celestine. I am a product manager / former BI and GIS analyst living in Cape Town, South Africa, where I make weekly videos about tech, lifestyle, and occasionally a bit of books. My aim is to impact people with a love of science, technology, math, and basically understand it in a much easier way through storytelling, because that is what product management teaches you. Okay, so if you're interested, please like and subscribe. Now let's get into it. So, what is Weapons of Math Destruction? So, this book basically documents the effects of algorithms and their use within society. She goes through the increasing use of mathematical models, as she puts it, and discusses how the fact that their decision-making processes are often hidden, but their verdicts are very much real and felt, and what that means for us going forwards. She highlights examples from everything from teachers in America being graded, and then the bottom 15% being systematically fired without any real feedback, like, oh, you need to work on this, or oh, this is a problem area for you, no, just fired. And then others being praised without any real feedback either. She talks about personality tests for people who are attempting to find a job, and then they don't ever get a response for, well, this is why your personality didn't suit the job, or these are things we picked up. They're just either not informed, or they're just not hired. And then she also discusses things like prisoner recidivism, such a hard word, where effectively prisoners are given these long questions to answer, and based on the results of what they put in, the parole boards feed that into when deciding whether or not to give these prisoners parole, without informing the prisoners what their choices would mean. What is a characteristic of a weapon of mass destruction? Number one, it has to utilize mathematics in some way, so maths has to be involved. Number two, it has to be opaque, so very few people can know how it works, what math was utilized, what exact model was in there, and what the variables are, and what the key variables are. Number three, the verdicts have to be not open to feedback or appeal or anything. So if you think about it, if you go to the store, you get a slip and it lists everything on there, and you know that if they overcharge you or charge you for something that you didn't buy, you can go back to the store and say, hey, this is what happened. But the difference is with these models, you never know what went in, you never know what anything's going on there, and you can't ever say, hey, this is wrong because A, B, C, D. It's not happening for you. Another factor is that it punishes the poor or underprivileged or historically disadvantaged groups more often than not. And then finally, it makes the wealthier classes or rich people richer. So basically with those two, you can say that it entrenches inequality. So yeah, those are the characteristics of a weapon of mass destruction. Something that I thought was very interesting is she discusses this point of proxies. So what is a proxy? Essentially, it's a variable that is used in place of another variable that is hard to find or hard to find data for. So for example, if you are trying to find how much wealth people have, but you can't go out and ask people how much they're worth, because most people would probably lie or they would feel uncomfortable telling you. You might say their proxy could be the size of the value of the house that they earn. But it wouldn't be exact because a lot of people have like investments or things, and some people prefer to buy a much less house or like live in a much smaller apartment and then have a lot of money in savings or investments. So these things don't correlate that greatly, but that's what it is. Its proxy is often a variable that is somewhat associated with the actual variable that you are trying to find. The problem is, in some cases, there is weak relationships or weak correlations, and there are stronger ones. And some of the variables you'll see that she discusses within the book have much weaker correlations, and they cause more negative feedbacks into the system. Something else that was really interesting is that within a normal system, like if something bad is happening or something is going wrong within a business, you can go and report it to like a body or representative council. You can't go and exactly report something to a AI model unless you know what's going on. So because they are opaque and hidden, you can't go and say to the company, look, this is what's happening to me, I have this proof, and this is my story. So the AI model never knows that it's going wrong or it's going off tracks. So it keeps on repeating itself in like perpetuity. Very stressful, very stressful. And so then she goes on to give an example of a good model. Her good model was like a sports analytics, like baseball, or it could probably be other sports as well, where essentially everyone knows what's going in. The variables are all tied to the game, like how many times somebody hits a wall. As you can tell, I don't watch sports, but yeah, everyone knows what's going in. And of course, undoubtedly, some athletes will complain at the end of it, or some coaches or people, but for the most part, people understand what's going in and how it's being used and why. The difference is that, for example, with police prediction systems that she references as well, people don't understand why their neighborhoods keep getting policed consistently. And what happens is that within the police prediction systems, they have like these two types of crimes. So within class 1 crimes, you have the really dangerous ones. You have like homicide, arson, assault, all those terrible things that police should be predicting, like should be focusing on 99% of the time because they're terrible. Then you have type 2, which is often endemic in lower income areas. And these type 2 are things like petty selling and buying of really small quantities of drugs. Like really, when you think of like low rates of crimes, like petty pickpocketing, things like that, that's what goes on in these areas. But of course, when they go onto these like police predictions software and they only select the type 1 crimes, it just gives a little bit of like dots on the map. But if they add in the type 2, the map goes like, I want to say blood red, but like it lights up and shows really all these areas that they can focus on. And of course, if they are patrolling these areas now more frequently, they are more likely to catch these smaller crimes than they are these larger crimes. And so this continually feeds in, because as people are booked for these smaller crimes, they are introduced to the system, and some of them may end up going to jail, where they are introduced to more hardcore, I don't know what other word to use, but hardcore criminals. And then they end up coming out and struggling to find work, and then having to turn to more aggressive crime to support themselves and their families. And it just causes an internal, I shouldn't say internal, it causes a cycle of negativity and like policing in these areas that often entrenches the poor, or that often entrenches poverty. So that is something else to keep in mind. From there, we kind of have to ask ourselves, what are the pros and cons of increased AI use within society? So the first pro could be something like efficiency. With humans free from having to do mundane tasks like data capturing or sorting through basic documents for like keywords, we can do more higher level things like creativity, looking for insight that we might not do, looking for insight within industries, that kind of thing. That's going to be where we shine. Cost savings is another great factor, pro for us. If we can go and, by automating tasks that take a lot of time, or by automating tasks that are very expensive for us to do, we can save money there, and that's a good thing. Improve decision making. If AI can go and find new areas where the data points to, or find new things that we did not know before, so the unknown unknowns, so to speak, we would be able to cash in, we would be able to make more strategic decisions that would benefit companies and society in the long run. And then finally, personalization. That is the last pro, and it states that AI can deliver like personalized learning, personalized banking offers, personalized assistance, if you think of like virtual assistants and things like that. And of course, if you're interested in advertising, then personalized advertising, whether or not people want endless ads, that's another question entirely. The cons, bias. AI models are only as good as the data it's fed in. We know, for instance, there's been a huge amount of data that's been fed into AI models of people who look similar to me, and not enough of other people, so that's unfortunate, and that of course is something that needs to be rectified. The next thing is a lack of transparency. We need to get to a place where we understand the methods going in, we understand the variables we use, we need to understand if proxies are being used and why, and what the relationship between them is, and we need to understand what if a certain verdict comes out through the model, can we know more about it, how can we fix it, or how can we like appeal if we feel like it's wrong, these kind of things. More feedback needs to come in. Another con is job displacement. Many people are worried about that, and if we need to do more education or alignment, these are things we need to think about. And then finally, ethical concerns. There are some things that AI just shouldn't be allowed to do, and these are things such as applying for a job, for example. These are just things that we need to think about. So then the last section I wanted to talk about was just a little bit how to effectively prepare for a greater use of weapons of mass destruction or just mathematical models in life. So from an individual basis, it's obviously like learning, prioritizing skills and things like that. But in reality, it's staying informed on what is going into these models, continually making sure that if, for example, your credit score is going, like your annual check, that you're actually checking it, making sure that you're aware of the factors in there, trying to get a hold of the data so way you can potentially rectify any issues there. And then just making sure that you are vocal to firms, government, or community leaders to say, this is what's going on and this is how you understand it, and you don't want to live in a world where people aren't trusted or people aren't provided with the information on what is going on in these AI models, because that will cause problems for everyone. We need to be able to understand them if we are going to work with them and if they are going to become tools in every industry. And then it's the same for economies. As they become more entrenched, it's easy to say that new jobs will be created for them. We need to keep working to figure out what those jobs are and how we can assist people to transfer to them. So I hope you enjoyed this. I will see you next week with a new video. Cool. Thank you and bye.